Hi, I'm Elena Percival. I'm the CEO of Women Who Code. It's a 501c3 dedicated to inspiring women to excel in technology careers. It's in 18 countries in over 50 cities, so feel free to ask me questions about hiring specifically women engineers, but a lot of the advice goes to hiring engineers in general, about building a community, about dealing with global expansion, and yeah, I'll try and chime in with other questions that I know the answer to.
Great. Yours is actually one name that I probably could pronounce because it's the same. And
Christine is really difficult.
That one's a little tough. Although I sometimes struggle with your last day. I'm like, is it Heron? Haran? Like,
yeah.
Haran kind of sounds a little
the
like...
Safeway people, sometimes I get a hair on when I get
yeah. But yes, go ahead.
It's like wax on my stuff. So Christine Heron, Intel Capital, since Rob had his contact info up, I put mine up. And I kind of laughed at the AMA because I do talks for 500, which devolve pretty quickly into really inappropriate things. So it's just a normal
We've already
talk.
had that today, yeah.
It's just a normal talk. Yeah. And feel free to ask me about funding, anything related to women in funding in particular. I'm happy to sass about. And I've been sort of corporate the last few years. Before that, I was at First Round Capital for a few years, so happy to talk about seed funding. I have been an entrepreneur who's been groped by VCs. I have raised money and lost it all, so happy to touch on whatever of that is interesting.
Great. Jason?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, my name is Jason Vandenbrand. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Lenda. We're a online marketplace lender, and we're actually based here in Galvanize on the 4th floor. So if anyone here is Galvanize, please feel free to stop by and say hi. God, we did 500 startups about a year ago. It's been a pretty good ride since then, 25% month-over-month growth. So feel free to ask me anything regarding that journey thus far. This is my first startup that I've actually gotten fundraising done, so I'm happy to talk about that. And this is an AMA, so feel free to ask me anything. Thanks.
Hi, Sean Shepard, co-founder of GrowthX. We are a micro VC, $50 million seed stage fund. We also provide market development services to a select few of the companies we invest in. Five-time founder myself, 3 wins and 2 wonderful learning experiences. So I've been on both sides of it. Those of you know me, you know you can ask me anything and I will answer it, so I'm looking forward to this.
Cool. And so also for background for you guys, show of hands if you've already raised money for your venture. I know, we've given you too much. Okay, so majority of folks here, though, are early. They're sort of looking to raise their first round or getting started. So beginning of the day was a lot of the 101, cap table 101, convertible notes 101, so all this sort of background. So think about your questions, be ready, we'll do this. But first, I'll start it off. What's the worst and most annoying thing a founder can do in your experience? Start with the negative.
Assume anything.
Okay. Meaning they should never assume that money is going to be available, that they'll get support, that the sun will come up.
My father taught me to assume nothing except responsibility for your own actions. So you should develop hypotheses. True story, won't say who it is, but we just had a meeting with a company out of Houston that was raising $7 million seed funding at a $92 million valuation. And we said, why? He said, because that way I get to raise $7 million and keep as much of my company as I want to. And
that's sort of like the companies that are like, oh, I'm raising at $1 billion valuation, and later stage. Why?
Yeah,
because I want to be a unicorn.
I'm sorry. I believe in customer development, getting outside the building, and actually talking to people before you start making statements like that. But anyway, that was sort of the end of the conversation.
Put me on a newsletter without freaking asking.
That drives me crazy.
That drives me fucking batshit.
No. I have to unsubscribe from one a day.
If I'm at 30 startups this week, do I want to be on 30 more newsletters? I don't think so.
Which is a little contrary to what we talked about doing investor updates. So the monthly, hey, just want to update you, we've been talking, versus the here's all my consumer facing junk in your face. But yeah, that drives me crazy. I think I tweeted that and you favorited that at one point. I remember this. Yes. Okay.
Can I just say, if the person doesn't have an assistant, which is me, suggest times to connect, because if you say, let's suggest times for us to meet, you're asking me to do all the work. That happens all the time.
Yeah, that's tough too. Also, please don't say let's meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. It's I may be asleep or I've already booked that time. So, Okay. Let's go to the audience. Who wants to start? Everyone's always shy. Really? Come on. No? Let's do it. Kick it off, Adam. Break the ice.
Most emotionally difficult thing you've had to do as an entrepreneur?
Is this one for Jason?
I'll throw it out because I'm
Yeah.
holding it, and then I'll pass it along. Fire 30 people when I shut my company down. People with kids and mortgages.
I did that too. God, that was painful. Yeah.
Most emotional thing? I don't know. I think as a founder, every day is pretty emotional. At least it is for me. I've said this a bunch of times that I feel like being an entrepreneur is kind of like self-prescribed manic depression. You know, you kind of did it to yourself, and now you're on that roller coaster ride. So this morning I was screaming "fuck" at the top of my lungs because I found, you know, a leak in the boat and had to fix it real quick. But then, you know, had a good lunch and everything was good. And you know, like it's a roller coaster ride, and it's very emotional. And as founders,
Information. This isn't a lame answer.
What?
Be specific. Be specific.
Yeah, what happened? What's broken?
we had a client that we found out we could have told them no exactly 28 days ago, 4 weeks ago, and we missed it. We fucked up. And so now we're a customer-facing company. We're a B2C company. So now we have to go back to that customer. We focus on real estate finance transactions, home loans. This is a serious financial transaction that costs a lot of money. The answer would have been exactly the same 4 weeks ago, but we missed it in our system. And we found that leak now, and we fixed it. But now we have to go back to that customer and say, hey, we fucked up. And that's really, really shitty. No, we can't. We can't do the loan. Like, it's just a dead deal. And it just, that kind of stuff breaks my heart. It breaks our entire team's heart. And it was just it happens, you know. So those kind of things definitely happen. Is that specific enough for you?
Was that a
Felt like a confession.
Hold on. Was that a totally.
I think the way I want to answer it, and I'm just going to answer it this way because this is the way I want to answer it. Yeah. Recognizing the emotional toll that your life choice as an entrepreneur takes on those that love you is the hardest thing to come to terms with. I've been married almost 15 years. I have a 13-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son. She's been on this roller coaster with me since the beginning. She's the strongest person I know by a mile. She's been there when we've made millions. She was there when I filed bankruptcy. She was there when I made it back. And you know, she'll be there until she kills me. But honestly, the toll that this life that we choose takes on the people that are around you is the toughest. I've lost relationships with a brother, a sister, a mother, have recovered and repaired those things. So, you know, just hard things happen constantly, and you've got to recognize that the people around you are impacted by it as well.
We're getting into the dark stuff really quick here. Jeez. All right. It's true, though. I mean, but this is true, and this is the good stuff. And honestly, I feel like investors and accelerators don't do enough to address it. I mean, we try and do this, and I went through hell on my last company too. And I do a talk called Founder Real Talk, and like I look out, and like at least 30% of the people out there are crying after this talk. And like I know that it's good, and maybe I cry a little bit, but no, that was like off the record. Like, yeah, because I have to talk about the bad stuff investors did too. I don't want them seeing that. But go ahead.
For me, it's all of the stuff that we have to say no to, the things that we can't do. And if I actually have to like write that, no, sorry, we can't do it, it's like even harder. And it can be anything from, you know, a dad in Long Island writing to ask if we can recommend a mentor for his 13-year-old daughter. And we're like, that's amazing, but that's not what we do. It's so painful. And it can also be, you know, you can just always be doing more is something that I said leading into this conversation, and seeing other things around you that you're like, oh, and we could be doing this, but like honing it in and sticking to what you're doing. And it's really, really hard to do.
Other questions out there? Yep, back here. Go ahead.
How is it best to sort of mitigate these high growing across the world, and then it's like, am I going to do business? So what, I mean, obviously surrounding yourself with a great team, but what else would you say, any sort of hacks or tips that you can offer?
As quickly as possible, find your posse. You know, like if you're a founder CEO, find at least 5 founder CEOs that will be there for you. Like, I've cried on Adam's shoulder probably a dozen times.
It's true that like misery loves company, so yeah.
Yeah, so it's just someone to commiserate with. It's someone to celebrate with. You know, like I'll see Pranay tonight, who was also in Adam and Mai's batch at 500, and you know, it will be tales of glory and also tales of sorrow. And I think that that's really important as you go through the journey, to have that person that can really relate to you and where you're at. And then also have someone that's been there but is ahead of you, right? So we're a seed stage company. I try to talk to people that are very Series A and Series B, and I kind of look at them as my North Star and say, all right, well, that's where I want to be. What did you do? And talk me through this. And I think it's really important to kind of level out the roller coaster ride. And then, of course, there's alcohol. So,
although that's dangerous. I mean, I definitely see my fair share of like substance abuse problems, which concern me. I know it's a relief. I would say something that's not as bad for your body, and which was helpful to me, was just writing, just getting it out. You don't have to publish. Sometimes you can because you don't want to like rattle the cage too much. But like, great example, like I was going through the Series A crunch. I was very Series A crunched. I needed an outlet. I created a Twitter account called Series A Crunch and just riffed on investors all day, totally anonymous. The unfortunate thing was the damn thing went viral, and all the investors that said no started following that account. So it was a weird vindication too, but I always tell people, like, you gotta get it out, put it down, talk with someone too. Where I see founders that struggle on the ups and downs, they bottle everything in, and then you're just destined to blow and have a breakup and have an explosion, and many bad things happen.
Perspective. Don't forget why you're doing what you're doing and what the end goal is, and constantly remind yourself of that. And I mean, have reminders on every one of your screens, and have reminders on your nightstand, and have reminders from the people that you love and care about you and that are around you constantly. And then, as Jason said, I completely agree. Find somebody who's done and accomplished what you've already accomplished, and you know, make them your mentor, make them an advisor, make them somebody that you can bounce this stuff off of.
I don't believe I need to answer every question, but I do want to throw one in on this one. I think I was a sole founder when I started a company, and I would never fucking do that again. No, seriously, because then what happens? You field every ball. You can never take a vacation. You can never close your eyes. And so not having anyone to share the weight with you when it gets heavy is really hard. So, and people talk about they don't like to invest in people, they like to invest in teams, and usually people talk about in the context of competencies. But I think part of it is just, it's a lot easier if someone else can take a turn. You know, it's not always your turn. And so that you can catch your breath now and then.
Yeah, and I think there's like even YC's famous about not liking the solo founders. I guess how many are solo founders here, just so we know who we're offending? Okay.
Dude, get some fucking friends, and give them equity, because, and treat them like, seriously, you're going to be miserable.
Yeah, but I think the competency thing is really, really important too.
See, I talk like this everywhere.
Remember I said she's going to be candid and straightforward. But think about this too. You cannot be good at everything. It's probably going to be a balance. He or she's awesome at the technical things, and then the other person is awesome at the business and finance, and together they are complete. Like the balance is really needed. So this is why it's not some weird bias. It's just like, we know that journey's long and hard, and you do need a break, and you need someone to supplement you. You just can't do everything. Yep. Go ahead.
I guess my question is, how do you guys remain grounded and not let arrogance creep in? Not to be just sit stature. I mean, you won't place the goes, but when you can flying high, let's face it, you won't get level something of God complex.
Yeah. So are you asking for I guess for everyone? How do you sort of remain level-headed? Like we talked about the Valley having this forced modesty. Like, yeah. How do you sort of maintain that? Yeah.
Which one of you has the worst God complex?
Jason.
I'm an arrogant asshole.
Are you though? I mean, you're really likable. I've enjoyed working with you.
I'm
yeah,
likable,
but you have some arrogance.
But
Yeah.
I've been called arrogant. I've been called cocky. And I think as a founder CEO who's out there raising money, you kind of have to be at times, Because if you don't believe in your business and you can't convince someone to write you $1 million check, you know, I think cockiness and like believing in yourself and who you've recruited and retained that's how I do it. I don't know, you know, and that's just who I am. But that's on the fundraising side. I think from a business perspective and a personal perspective, I've been really fortunate in my life. I've done a lot of cool shit. I've traveled a lot, and I've seen a lot of the world, and I'm super thankful every single night when I go to bed next to my wonderful, wonderful wife, who has supported me through multiple entrepreneurial fucking ups and downs. And we have a really awesome bed, and we get hot showers every night, and we live in Marin County. Like, my life is awesome no matter what happens. I live in the Bay Area. It's paradise, in case you haven't been outside today. You know, like, so I have that perspective, and I think that keeps me kind of leveled, that no matter what happens, I've got that. You know, I'm never, like, I live in the USA. I'm never gonna go hungry. I'm always gonna have a roof over my head. I'm always gonna have like friends to kind of support me and pick me up if I do fall down. So I've got that. And that is, for me, very, very rewarding, so I can go out and take big risks, like Lenda. So that's, I don't. No pills. This is pure, baby.
You've evolved. You were a bit of a reindeer in the headlight, yeah. Like, you were a little like, when you first came in. And so I guess, can we disclose this? I did some follow-on investing. And I didn't really want to do the investment, to be honest. I was going to wait because we can invest later. But you came in and you had the perfect amount of confidence, and you really articulated that you know the business now, and the economics are good, and that this thing is just, the momentum is there. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, other than the few statements you just made about your yuppie life in Marin County, like, you've maintained pretty well. Good job.
Thank you, Sean. And thank you for investing.
Yes. Come by my big house in Belmont. We'll talk more about it.
So size does matter. You can be, you know, to me, the only difference between arrogance and confidence is ignorance. I don't think Jason is arrogant. I think he's confident. And I've just met him, but I've been there. What keeps me grounded is getting my ass beat regularly. Not just by life and the challenges that we face every single day in taking risks. People think every overnight success story is overnight. It takes 7-10 years to have an overnight success story. They don't know what it's like to eat top ramen and not pay yourself to make sure everybody in your company is getting paid, right? They don't. Then you might have a wonderful day. Everybody thinks you're great, and you go home and your wife's like, "Take the kids. I'm going out with Lucy, and we're going to get drunk because this sucks." Right? So there's all sorts of different ways that you can stay grounded and humble, but it mostly has to do with, you know, mindfulness and awareness. And what I've learned in life is that the things that I've gotten have come from my giving, you know, coming from trying to be a humble servant, and every day trying to be a little bit more of that, and be helpful to people, and never forget that, you know, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants just sitting here, right? I didn't do this by myself.
Life hack to save you time, agony.
Put the most ridiculous minor things into your calendar because they will get forgotten. So, for example, I put bio breaks in my calendar on days with lots of meetings running around, because otherwise I'll be like, fuck, that meeting went 5 minutes over. I really have to go to the bathroom. So now I'm going to be 15 minutes late to get into the car. And, like, you know, it happens. So just put really meaningless shit into your calendar and you'll be glad.
Do all of you read email right when you wake up? Is it like the first thing, like, scratch yourself and then grab your phone? Like,
no, I'm making lunch for a 5-year-old.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm reading email and then I'm making lunch.
Yeah. It's the first thing I do when I wake up. It's the last thing I do when I go to bed is read email and reply. I'm a total addict.
I know. Isn't that bad, though? To me, that feels unhealthy. Yeah.
It's terrible.
It is. And especially at night, you're actually, it's proven that your phone, like, is basically spinning your brain up when you should be settling down.
It's what, It is what it is.
Yeah.
I got emails to get to. And
But
I
I've
can't
been
get the
trying to
inbox
do
to
morning time with my kids too instead, and like I'm just so much happier with life.
And here's the thing. So like I remember, and this like stood out like this sort of stark numbers thing where I remember one night fairly recently, I stayed up until like 2 a.m. trying to get into my email inbox. I'm like, oh, fuck this. I'm like up over 800. That's just too many. So I chewed it down by a couple hundred, and I was so excited. Woohoo! $5.95 or whatever. Go to bed at 2 a.m. My daughter wakes me up at 6:30, so I check back by like 7:15. I had 80 new fucking emails. And like, do people realize it's just not physically possible in the time-space continuum for me to answer that many emails, so people just don't get responded to because they all had shit attached to them, so I just let things die.
Yeah, I'll say if I don't check those emails before I go to bed, I'll actually not sleep well, and I'll be like having nightmares and restless because I'm waiting to someday. But I'm still in the non-profit seed stage.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. Notice like we keep. I know. Well, we keep drifting into email because email is so dominating, and I think it was Mark Suster that said like it's the to-do list that other people can add to whenever they want. Like that's a terrifying proposition. Yeah, that's scary.
That's a horrible way to think about it. I'm going to quit using email now that you've said that.
I think also like VCs like that's like the number one thing. It's
no,
like,
the
okay,
one thing for me is
skiing and complaining about email.
is I've learned how to say no politely and not feel bad about it. The book Essentialism has truly changed my life in the last year.
What is the book called?
Essentialism.
Essentialism.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about. Decide what's important in your life, create your priorities, and then stay disciplined to that. And it gives you great little tips and tricks and techniques on how to do it in the right way. Because you want, if I were a dinosaur, I'd be a plesiosaurus. I want to make everybody happy. I do. I want to make everybody happy, and it's been to my own detriment. And so I'm learning now, at 42 years old, how to do this for the first time. And frankly, it's kind of liberating. And I'm not just a VC, I'm a VC with a services arm. So I have 7 portfolio companies that we're helping provide market development strategy and early execution for. So I'm pretty damn busy.
That's super hands-on and yeah.
Yeah, so it's crazy. So essentialism has been my thing. So that's the life hack for me.
Yep, Becca? This is like, just to clarify, like a B2B type sale. Okay. Yep.
Wait, are you saying a B2B sale transaction? Are you saying as a founder pitching an investment?
No, turn those people down. Yeah. Turn those people down. They turn into like freaking deepest, darkest rat holes you can imagine, and you could have like serviced and won so many other clients. Like I don't imagine you have a lot of feedback from us, but yeah, no, turn them down.
Yeah, I think
the best answer in sales is no.
Well, I think it's just, I was going to say, it's the same for investors. The investors that want to give you the least amount of money typically are the biggest pain in the ass. Like good investors want to give you the money you need and get out of your way, except when you need their support and help too. And yeah, this I think is very similar, B2B or consumer. If you're discounting people too much, giving them all these discounts, those discount users are horrible. They're just like low yield and then high overhead. And so, that person you deal with, if they're a burden before the deal, like you don't want to know what's happening next. Yeah. Other questions out there? So shy. We should have done the drinking first. Yeah. Yeah. Founder limbo. What was your experience?
Like I shut down my company. I fired everybody. Turned down the asset acquisition offer because it felt like I was getting away with something that would tarnish my reputation. So I think I preserved reputation at the cost of bank account. I think I licked my wounds for about 2 years, and this was in 2001, so there was all sorts of bad shit happening, right? And I felt bad because I let go of a lot of people that then couldn't get another job, right? Because everyone was shutting down. It's not like today where if you shut something down, those people get hired right again. So licked my wounds, contract work / consulting
Yeah.
for
we talked about
several
that,
years
yeah.
with some really good people. Like Scott Rafer, Mike Siegel, John Calb. Like these are now like family to me, which I think most people don't know that we worked together for a while. Yeah, there's just nothing about. I just licked my wounds for a couple of years, and there's nothing you can do. And then eventually, you're like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. I want to spend some time working on this thing that seems really cool. It's like dating, It's like someone dumps your ass and you're crushed, and then eventually you're like, oh, well, they're kind of cute.
So there's a mourning period, and the last thing you should probably do is immediately turn around and do a new company. Like this is the biggest mistake you could make.
Yeah, it's 5 stages of grief. It's just like anything. You go through those. Depending on the level of maturity you are in your life, and the second deal for me was a lot easier to get through than the first time I screwed up. I took it very personally. I viewed it as my failure, not the failure of 2008. So you get through these things in different ways, right? How you react is more of who you are than how you act.
How do you deal with no's?
Yeah, look, I've gotten a lot of no's. I love no's because fundraising is sales, and every no you get, you're closer to the next yes. So don't ever forget that as you go out and fundraise. Steal microphones.
That's how he's funding his business, yeah. You'll see that on Craigslist later today. Yeah.
I think the first time I started fundraising, which was probably like a year, 14 months ago now, I got a couple no's, and I would just defend via email and write this long, just bullshit. It didn't matter what I said. I already got to know. Who cares? So instead of doing that now, I do look for feedback, because I think it is VCs are really smart, right? They're not all of them, but they're smart. And so it's a time for you to get some valuable feedback about your business. What don't they like? And not just like, you're too early. That's bullshit. That's no, right? Give me something tangible that I can take. What don't you really like, right? Like, give me something real. And then I jot it down. I use Streak to manage my fundraising pipeline in Gmail. There's a tool that you could use. And that is, that's it. And then I compile that after the fundraising is closed, and I kind of look at it and I say, well, is there anything valuable here? Are they right? Maybe they are. Who knows? If I heard it a bunch of times, maybe they are. Maybe there is something I need to take a closer look at.
So, Marcus has joined us. You want to do a quick intro?
Ask me how long it took me to get from Palo Alto to here. 2 hours. And I'm not even parked legally.
Yeah.
all the garages are full because of the ball game.
Oh, got it.
Gotta use
Yep.
Lux.
So I'm really sorry about my tardiness.
That's okay. By the way, a VC can be late to a meeting. You as a founder cannot. So just keep that in mind.
No, but that's not cool, right? You should
Yeah.
respect people's time.
Yep, I agree.
Either way, I'm sorry. But so I'm Marcus Ogall of Quest Venture Partners. We're a seed stage Series A firm. Typically do checks in the range of like $300K to about $1 million. Done about 65 investments. And been around since 2008. So ask me anything.
Let's start with this one question where it was about no's. So you give a no. What should the founder do next?
What should the founder do next?
Yeah, they've gotten a no from you.
Respectfully ask why. And if I give you my answer, then great, and you can prod into the answer. But don't try to convince me otherwise. Because if I've already said no, it's because not just me said no, but the rest of my partnership probably said no too. Right? So if anything, you're A, wasting your time, and then B, you're inflaming the situation. It's better to kind of ask the reason why and then move on. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, we have a thread where a founder, we've said no to the accelerator, and I'm like been reading it in between, and it's like go get the popcorn. He's gonna just keep digging himself a bigger hole.
There's something to be said about tenacity, but there's also something to be said like dog with a bone, where you're just consistently chewing at me. That pushes me away at you rather than make me more interested. So tenacity is one thing, but if I give a clear no, it's a no.
So, but they should take the feedback, process it, potentially come back to you in a month or two when they've maybe addressed some of that. Is that That's too soon. Okay. So
it's usually too soon.
Okay, more like 3 to 6 months, because then you have some data you can actually be like, here's 3 to 4 months of data to show that this is the right way to do it.
And usually I'm like, hey, prove me wrong. I'm happy to see you prove me wrong.
Yep.
Right.
So how often will you reinvest?
Will I reinvest? So there was one company, Coffee Meets Bagel, we originally saw in 2013. We passed on them then because we thought they had a strong team, but they were in the dating circle, and we were just like, fuck no. You know, this is such a competitive market and consumer area that if you don't have any real traction, it's just like you're blowing smoke up my ass. So we ended up doing it in the actually 2015 when they actually had significant amounts of revenue, in like 3 million plus. So they went out and they proved me wrong. And I was like, sweet, I'm happy to pay up and do the deal then, right? So there is a case where I said no, and 2 years later I said yes, because I had already kind of mentally vetted the team, and they actually demonstrated and executed what they said they were going to do.
That's a good question, yeah. Why be a founder? Why the hell would you do this? You know, you look good in a suit. You can go work at a bank. Like what? You know. Let's start with Jason and let's kind of go around.
I can't. Like I've been fired from every job I've ever had. I was definitely that kid that, you know, did not handle authority very well. I don't know. I can't work for other people. It's just who I am. I have worked for other people. I have been fired from all those jobs, and I don't know. It's just I don't know if I've chose entrepreneurship. I think it's just how I am. I've always, you know, from a very, very early age, I always found a way to hustle and make money. Whether it was paper route or mowing lawns or building a fucking 4x8 shovel to shovel driveways in Philadelphia with a bunch of my buddies, I was that dude that was going up to the door and saying, can we shovel your driveway for $25? I'll give you 20. No, it's 25. Right? And if you want your sidewalks, it's an extra 10. And so it's just, I've always been this way. I can't help it. Sorry.
That's fucking awesome. So I know when I started a company, it was, you know, obviously this is a while ago, but I don't really think it's changed that much since then, sadly, I was getting shut out of some opportunities at work, which it was very clear that gender was at play. And I said, fuck this, it's easier to raise money than to get ownership at work and get a raise or whatever, so I'll just go start a company instead, and so I did that. And it is easier to raise money than to get an offer or get a raise.
Very similar to Jason in that I never actually thought about working for other people. I mean, my first job, I was an arms dealer. I was selling Chinese throwing stars out of the back of Black Belt magazine at school.
I remember those ads, actually, yeah.
No, not kidding. And then the money I made that summer, I used to loan to my parents at a 10% interest rate for an extra day at Disneyland because they couldn't afford it. So that's just always been who I am. And I went and played golf for a living for 5 years after college, and so that was a solitary existence of constant failed entrepreneurship. But that's always been who I am. Like Jason, honestly, I tried working for other people, but I always was either arrogant enough or confident enough, or just had a belief in myself that I could do it better, or that there were certain ways that I wanted to do things. And over time, I've learned to balance that out. Partnerships are really important to me. I've got great partners of varying perspectives and backgrounds and genders and ethnicities, et cetera. And I've learned to be a part of a team. I've always been the team leader, but now I'm really part of a true team, and it's a very different experience. And I think it just comes with me. For me, it just came with maturity, just growing up.
Yeah, can we know your experience or what you're seeing with Women Who Code? Like, why are they coming to you? Because they want to be either engineers or founders or both.
Yeah. So I would say about 5% of our members are entrepreneurs or interested in becoming entrepreneurs. And so, I mean, from my perspective, I was like Jason, like I had my first business that I was paying taxes on when I was in middle school. And I've just always been really passionate about it, but with Women Who Code, it's definitely about the mission, and that's what keeps me going. And it's the stories, the successes that the individuals have in their careers and in their lives that, enables me to answer my emails at night before I go to bed and in the morning when I wake up.
You said you had a second question, too? Best investment? Okay. You want to start at the end? You're just saying that.
The best mentor I've ever had was actually an entrepreneur. He was a much older entrepreneur, had founded TIBCO in his past, so I had a very successful company in the past. But just working with him, I was able to bring some value to the team too, but I found that I was actually the one being mentored rather than the other way around. So I tried to soak up and learn as much as I could from that relationship. But what it came down to was, he was all about sort of respecting people, but at the same time having a goal and agenda in line and setting expectations with people. So I learned from him that those are kind of key things for me to have done. And this is like no secret. So the CEO was a gentleman named Vijay Tella, who was the CEO of a company called Quick. And that was a very difficult company because it was a turnaround situation when we invested. So we had to work very closely together. So really, that was the best mentor for me thus far. He's actually been one of my entrepreneurs. Not a common thing, but in this case, it was definitely him.
This is Quick, QIK, right? Yeah, so it's interesting. Like when you think about it, like they were, yeah, well, the mobile broadcasting, I mean, they were basically too early. Yeah.
But it was a dog on the ballot. Everyone had written it off.
Yeah.
Everyone thought it was a failure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, it had a great engineering team, and it just needed a new CEO to step in the role. And when we made the investment, we had kind of communicated to the other founders that the CEO needed to shift, and they were 100% behind that idea. And before we made that investment, because we were able to work with the team so close, we could make that change happen and change the burn from 500K to 180K and all kinds of crazy stuff, right? This is in 2009. So, I mean, this is big money back then. But it only happened because there was trust and respect and open communication. And also, I think because the people involved had high integrity. If there wasn't that, then I don't think you could have gone, we couldn't achieve what we did with Quick. So really, that was actually the best mentor for me.
Let's keep telling mentor stories, and then if you could add how you got them to be your mentor, that just so they can sort of learn or steal that idea.
I don't know. I've yet to find one. It would be great, but I've never had that relationship develop, which is kind of sad. I mean, I'd like it, but.
How'd you become such a badass then? Just on your own? Yeah, okay. I get it.
I don't like being told I can't do shit.
Got it.
I've had a lot of good mentors, but one always comes to mind. I did an internship while I was in college. I had an internship lined up at Merrill Lynch, and then I just wasn't feeling it. It was like a cubicle job for the summer, and naturally, and then this opportunity came up through the internship network at Penn State, where I went to school, and it was Exotic Key Beach Resort out of Belize, and I was going to be managing this resort for this international real estate developer named Mike Cobb. And I went to the interview, and me and Mike got along peas and carrots. Like, this dude was just solid. And he calls me up, tells me I got the internship. I'm totally stoked. Everyone tells me I'm batshit crazy. Totally should have went to Merrill Lynch. Like, this is career. You got to get in there and do, I studied finance. Like, this is what you got to do. So I go down there, and Mike just ended up becoming a really solid mentor for me. And I don't think I ever asked him, like, will you be my mentor? It was very, I just looked up to him because what he was doing was badass. He would go to countries like Belize before anyone knew really where Belize was, and would like bushwhack through the jungle and then buy a shit ton of real estate and then develop it. And then it was just cool. So I really looked up to him. And after my first business failed, I went and saw him. And the reason I always liked Mike is because the question that he asked me, I was devastated naturally. And he goes, great, your business failed. It happens all the time. What did you do right? And I thought, fuck, I never thought about that. Because when you fail, all you think about is everything you did wrong, right? And so that just gave me a little bit of perspective. I was like, Mike, I don't even know, because I haven't thought about that. I've just been down here for so long. So let me get back to you. And I just think that those kind of questions, that's why I've always looked up to him. I keep in touch with him probably only every 6 months now, shoot him an email, let him know how things are going. He always asks me really good questions, so I appreciate that.
I've been incredibly fortunate in my life. My father and my grandfather were my first and still best mentors. My grandfather was a Bronze Star winner at the Battle of the Bulge in World War II and started his own company. And my father was a Navy SEAL and then went to work for Intel and helped build that company through the 80s and retired as the EVP of Technology Manufacturing. And I grew up having dinner with Andy Grove and Bob Noyce and Gordon Moore and Paul Otellini and Craig Barrett and all these guys. They're just industry luminaries, and I got to see and watch how they did things, and I, of course, didn't listen to any of it. but it took a long time. Now my best mentor is my business partner, Will Bunker, who was the founder of what became Match.com, and it's just inflicted with common sense. He's from the Mississippi River Delta in Arkansas. He's a farmer who started a dating site in 1996 in Dallas because he wanted to figure out how to make money on the internet. He took $90,000 in outside investment and sold the thing 3 years later for $50 million. So we all came, myself, my two partners, we all came from outside the valley in terms of where we had our successes. We didn't have this idea of mentorship wasn't a thing. But now I look back on it as somebody who's mentoring a lot of folks is that, as I said earlier, find somebody who's accomplished what you've accomplished and try to make them your mentor. And more importantly, they should just want to invest in you because of you, not because of what you're asking them to do. That they take a personal interest in you as a person is more important than the rest of it. Business is transactional, relationships are forever.
Yeah, for me, it's hard to find one person. It's more of a concert of a bunch of people. But I can tell you there's like 3 or 4 entrepreneurs that are like pretty high up, pretty well known. And it's Jason Calacanis, Jason Nazar, Dave McClure, who I work for now, Mike Jones. So some of those folks are LA folks. I can tell you I got on their radar and they all eventually hired me. And the one technique that I used that always worked, I was sort of like a young scrub. Like people kind of knew who I was. I had some marketing skills. And I would literally email them and say, hey, this is not good on your site, you could do this. And I happened to be decent with Photoshop, and I would move their site around, and I'd be like, this would actually optimize, this or that. Or I would send them a bunch of tips. And so I think that helped me stand out, because everyone's going to them saying like, hey, can you help me? Can I get 10 minutes of your time? And I was just like, yeah, I was just playing around with this, and I'd move this around and like this, and like they would implement it, and then like sometimes they'd be like, yeah, that works. Can you come in and like talk? And like that's how I got to know them, and literally they all eventually hired me. And so that was my sort of gateway, was going to them, providing something helpful before I even asked for anything. And then I took the mentorship once I worked for them. So that's sort of an easy hack. Probably have time for a few more questions. What else you got? Let's go. I like this, the positive stuff. We've gone dark, like yeah. But are you saying best single moment? Like an instance of, okay.
Yeah, I'll go. I think there's lots of them for sure, but kind of tying back to my earlier story where we fucked up with a customer, I think the moments for me that are always the best is when we get the customer success stories, kind of like what Elena was saying earlier. I don't know, it's like golf. It takes one shot to get you back, And so you get that customer that writes you an email, you didn't prod them for it, they just did it because they were really happy with what you did. Like that to me is just everything. That's like every single time, that's like huge celebration amongst the team and chest bumping and high fives and ass slapping. Like it's everything, So, and we're a B2C company, but you're selling to customers however you do it. And so, fortunately we get more of those than the former. But that's it. That's why we do it. So.
Yeah, they're in your pocket. It's interesting because I don't really ever think that I do anything that special. I just think I'm just doing a job that many people could do. But I had, there's a woman actually who came through 500 named Thuy Trong who had a company, pivoted around a little bit. She's, Vietnamese, and so she was like 30 under 30 in Vietnam, and had an acquisition to come back to the States. And so anyway, again, and I, helped her a little bit. It wasn't an investment we had made. I just helped her out because I just like her. And when she was doing like the announcement post about this, and she sort of did the "oh, thank you" little piece in it, she thanked me and like Dave McClure and I think one other person. I'm like, well, how the fuck did I get on that list? And she like went on and on about it, about how awesome I was. And I'm like, that's fucking great. That's so freaking cool. So I think that was probably it, because I don't think that what I do is that much of something, but the fact that someone else did, I was like, oh, that I was like, okay, that's pretty cool.
So, yeah, I already alluded to mine a little bit. My story is our director in Atlanta, when she got started, she was so shy to stand up in the front of a room to be a leader. She's CS master's degree, like awesome engineer, but at the first event she led, she was like, "Hi, I'm Erica. This is what we're doing tonight. Feel free to ask me questions." Okay. And she stood at the front of the room for a year, and she was invited the following autumn to speak at 3 different tech conferences. She didn't apply, she was invited, and she gave a tech talk to a standing room only crowd. And she's a woman of color, and so now she's a woman who is a role model for other women in the tech industry. And so seeing stuff like that and these stories that, I constantly get to absorb and see is definitely the highlight.
For me, it's well, going back to the same mentor story, was when Quick sold the Skype, and it was sort of this vindication of like, you guys all wrote these guys off, we believed in them, and they just told you guys all that we fucking rocked it, right? Because it was a large mobile acquisition, one of the largest at that point. So it was a big win for us financially, but more so for me, it was a massive emotional win because we sort of took a huge risk on these guys. We believed in them because they were good people and they were good, talented engineers, and didn't give a shit about whatever anyone else thought about them, and said, screw it, we're going to take this bet on these people, and it paid out. And to know that these guys were vindicated in sort of everyone's eyes was incredible. And that was the best feeling, to be honest. For me, honestly, it was better than the money. And that's probably my proudest sort of entrepreneur business relationship-wise. LP-wise, when I closed our first fund, and to know that we were able to get outside money and people believed in us enough to give us their money and in a large chunk, right? And it's like, who the fuck are these guys? But sure, we'll give them money, and to have that trust and faith in us, and to know certain people who did that, fully having faith in us more than anything, was a proud accomplishment too.
I just have a general attitude that, my success comes from the success of others, so I'll kind of frame it that way. The first time I had somebody who worked for me become a successful entrepreneur on their own and then thank me for it was just...
That was good too, yeah. It was a single message, you changed my life. And I was like, oh my God, it was actually worth it, all this shit.
Yeah, exactly. Not even ever realizing that was what, I certainly never set out to create that for somebody else, but it did immediately give me pause to think about what the hell am I doing and why am I doing it, and this is the greatest feeling I've ever felt. And then doing that for other customers and companies, providing, a solution or solving a problem for somebody that makes them more successful, wildly successful, is another kind of, high point. It's not about anything other than that, just trying to make other people successful, and if they show you gratitude and appreciation for it, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I think success is the best revenge sometimes. I think that's something to think about. Also for you guys, for founders specifically, that moment may come when you are walking by a window somewhere and you look in and someone's using your shit. That to me was always interesting. And one of my last businesses was clothing, and I saw someone wearing the clothing in public, and it was wow, I actually made an impact. Or you're at a party and someone talks about it. So those are little things too, and especially if you're engineers, and I guess the other sort of tip, be careful. Engineers hate it when they build stuff and it doesn't get used. They want it to live, they want it to go out too. So I think maybe as you're in the dark days, be just thinking about at some point I'm going to turn a corner and somebody's going to be using my stuff, and it's going to dramatically material impact their life, and that's a good feeling. All right, 1 or 2 more? Good question. Advisor compensation, do you give advisor shares to everyone? What do you guys say?
I like the feedback about mentors. You want to get mentors who buy in and believe in you, right? And they get rewarded by interacting with you and grooming you. I actually think that's the same thing with advisors, personally. If they're more in it for compensation, that their motivation is much more of a base motivation rather than a personally, emotionally engaged aspect. So you're less likely to get their full sort of commitment or mind share. So I think that if you have to motivate them through shares or compensation of some form, in some situations it's worthwhile, but you should realize that your engagement with them is much more of a transaction rather than a relationship. And so be cognitive of that more than anything. But sometimes you do need to open doors through that way. But just realize that, that's how close your relationship is. It's a cash basis.
Jason, do you have any advisors on Lenda right now?
Yeah, we have 2 advisors,
okay.
And one in particular, he has advisor shares. It's a small amount. I've been approached by other people that want to be our advisors, and they say shit like, yeah, I'll do it for 2%. And I'm like, no, you're fucking crazy. And it's always about like, yeah, we're going to introduce you to so-and-so and this and that and this and that. I'm like, well, why don't you just do that anyhow? Why do I have to give you 2% of my company to do that? You know, I just always felt, it just didn't feel right. But other advisors that, you know, I want them to have some sort of monetary kind of compensation at some point, right? So this one guy.
You have that want, right? We have advisors in our fund. They never asked us for the compensation. We asked them, would you be an advisor? And they said yes. And then we offered them the compensation.
Yeah, totally.
That's the important part.
Yeah.
It also depends. I'm assuming those people don't have deliverables, because I know I've seen people that have advisors that actually they either have a specific deliverable thing that they're doing for the company, and they're not going to charge the company. It's something that other people do pay them to do. And because of the personal relationship, again, there's always going to be something personal, like there's some trust basis. They'll say, yeah, instead of taking another client, I'll spend that time with you, and, you know, they get some shares for it, you know, and in those kind of situations. And sometimes it's providing strategic advice, like something that have a depth of information, but it's really structured. It's not just they're on a list and like maybe you talk to them once a quarter, like they're actually being tapped as you're doing product development or whatever. I've seen people get anywhere, because I think this is the actual question too, anywhere from 0.1% to like maybe 0.5%, and that's something that vests over a very short period of time. Like, don't do a 4-year advisor agreement, do a 12-month. 12-month that vests monthly, so you could cut it off, like when they're not able to help you or you finish what you're working on, or if you're just super friendly, you let it keep going, just because you want to have them be rewarded if you do well. But make it very, very short term and for very small amounts. And I'm using those amounts assuming that you haven't really raised either any money or not very much. So.
Yeah, I think that's like Adam has a story he can talk to you about. Someone asked for 10%, I think. The Shark Tank, the shark asked for 10%. He literally was a shark. Got it. Seems fair. Yeah. The other thing I worry about too is like they're like the Pokemon of startup advisors, got to collect them all, and they're just like out there getting equity from everyone they can, because they know like once they get it, especially if they get it vested, like they're in good shape and doesn't matter what they do long term. I love the idea of short engagements so you can sort of see what they're doing. Most advisors I see, it's like, yeah, they're amazing for 1 month, and then it's like ghost town.
Yeah, but if you only are compensated, then that's fine.
Yeah, there you go.
Totally
Gives you some
fine.
protection. Yeah.
4 years is ridiculous.
Dave McClure always told us that if you get an advisor, I mean, look, if you get a year out of them, you're lucky.
That's a long time.
That's
Yeah.
a long time. You know, and it depends on how you structure it. Like I meet with one of our advisors, or I did for the first year, crazy enough, once a week for an hour. And it was scheduled, and if it was, like I live and die by my calendar, and if for whatever reason I was just too crazy to reach out to Mark and be like, hey, when are we meeting? He would reach out to me and be like, hey, when are we meeting? You know, so he believed, and he got me through some crazy shit in the first year. So I'm forever thankful to him, and we still keep in touch. I probably only see him now like once a month, but that's plenty. You know, he got me through that first year, and that was really why I wanted him there, because he had been through this before. All right. I gave him 25 bips. Yeah. What's that? Bips. 0.25%. I'm talking bips a lot.
But notice,
Not
like
bankers.
these are
Not
a
bankers.
fraction of a percent. You know, these are not percents. These are not 1 to 5%, which some people might push for. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Is that a
I
cop
have a whole
out? Do you
slide
say
deck
that?
on this.
Yeah.
I do have a whole slide deck on bad responses. So I think that it's always code for something. I mean, all of the answers are code for something else, right? So to the extent that I think you will accept my feedback, do something useful with it, and I like you enough to bother with you, you know, like where I might want to talk to you again ever, then someone will give you useful feedback. To the extent they don't like you, they think you'll get defensive or whatever, they won't bother giving you anything other than, oh, you're too early, right? So think about that. There's a little bit of you draws that out too. Some people, when you break up, you just don't give them a reason because they're just going to bug you. But it's true. But usually when people say it's too early, it means they don't believe your story. And so you have to have traction before they'll take something on faith. So to the extent there are things in your story that you're telling that are hard for someone to swallow for whatever reason, Usually it's too early, just kind of gets trotted out and thrown over, right? And so when you hear someone say it's too early, say, okay, so what's too early? Is it the market? Is it the maturity of my team? Is it my customer attraction? Like, what are the things that would give you some comfort that my story is shaping up to be true, right? So you can either walk away and say, okay, that's a bullshit answer, which it is, or just go ahead and ask the question and say, okay, I'd like to make this into useful feedback. What do you mean by too early?
So you think a good investor would say it's too early, I need to see you at bullet point 1, 2, 3.
Well, they would
Bad
skip the
investor-
too early part. They would say something like, I don't really believe that that's going to turn into a market. I'd want to see at least a couple of companies in the space that are starting to get some customer traction. Right? Or they might say something like, I don't believe you're going to be able to find a CTO, or I don't believe, there's something they don't believe. Right? It's a question of, can you get them to tell you what that is?
John Marcus?
What she said.
I would add exactly what you said, for sure. The one thing I'd add, though, is if you went through 8 meetings and they said that to you, there's a good chance that if you're doing like a Series A or B round, that they're actually doing diligence on a company they do want to invest in, and they were just fishing with you to get data. Yeah, there's 3-letter acronym firms on Sand Hill Road who frequently do that kind of shit, and we know about them as earlier stage investors. And if you get the right early stage investors, they'll tell you, they're stringing you along, right? I mean, I've had a situation where one of my companies went through literally 8 meetings with a 3-letter acronym firm on Sand Hill, and 2 weeks later they invested in their competitor, right? And they said, oh, this isn't for us, and then they literally invested in the competitor 2 weeks later. Yeah, I'm not getting there.
But there's a few, thankfully.
The thing is that I know it, right? And my friends know it, and we talk about it. And it's not something that we expose out in public, right? Because it's something that's important that we know, but I don't necessarily think that it actually does a lot of good if it's because it's the whole firm. Because in this particular case, it was one unscrupulous partner, right? And I happen to know that partner continued to go on and do shifty shit, right? So, but I don't see the value in just spilling that out openly, right? Other than just let's get a pitchfork and go, hoist this guy up, which I also don't think is necessarily a fair way of judging people. So that's why I don't do that.
And in the case of something like that, it might also be that someone had that many meetings with you and they were convinced they could get that deal through, and they were overruled by somebody else. There's someone's vote they couldn't get. And rather than say, well, my partner wouldn't say yes, because A, that's throwing the partner under the bus, which publicly is a bad thing. And then B, it makes them look like they have no sway inside their team, which also is a bad thing, because people won't bring deals to them if it looks like you don't have sway and you can't get the deal done because someone overrules you. So there's internal politics that sometimes sit behind it's too early.
Was it really 8 meetings? It was like 8 meetings. They came up with 3.5 weeks. I literally did like a full closed strip, like a doctor's visit.
Full body cavity search.
How big a dollar are we looking for?
Yeah, I don't know. You're on your seed 5 round.
For $500,000? That's ridiculous. That's, yeah. Still.
It sounds like it was more competitive intel.
Yeah.
I did one that was 5 meetings, which is exactly what she was talking about, where there was one founding partner who just was not sold, and they kept trying to get me through other partners to help sell him, and in the end, he just couldn't get on board. They didn't tell me that, but I heard through the back channel.
Because no one wants to expose that. It looks like weakness, and they're not going to look weak to you.
Oh, you gave him free stuff too? Yeah. Sounds like they just wanted free guitars. Yeah.
But did you really want to work with them? Yes. So you were like, yes, this is my piece.
I thought you were doing it just to work your way through college.
It's plan B.
I'd love to get you guys' thoughts on, so this idea of getting a lot of junior entrepreneurs, and at various points in their company's life cycle, this concept of adult supervision.
What's a junior entrepreneur to you?
Sorry, first time entrepreneur. And whether it's at a funding point or at some point, some kind of external pressure comes out and says, okay, I think we need more senior leadership here. And I feel like either a step function up or it's like a step function down in terms of like company culture or I'd love to get your overall opinion. Is it good, bad, or is it just like, is there a right way to go?
So I got an answer for this. First and foremost, there is no categorical way of doing things, right? Usually when they're saying there's adult supervision needed around the table, it's because someone on the team is fucking it up, right? Look, if everyone's actually responsible and taking care of their shit and delivering, it's not a problem. Adult supervision just means that someone's not doing their job that they're supposed to be doing.
And they don't know how to get rid of that person, so
Yeah.
they're going to get adult supervision.
So now there's another point to this, though, is that when you're very early on, you don't see as much of this, this quote-unquote adult supervision other than advisory, right? In advisory capacities, you do see people getting switched out later on, and this kind of goes back to a fundamental that I like to harp on. I talk a lot about is that seed and Series A, very early stage is an art form, later stage is a science. And so when you're very early in a company, it's evolving so fast, and it's all about creativity. It's about re-execution rather than sort of creativity, right? Let's just put it that way. It's about creativity. Later stage, you've already figured out the model, you figured out the path you're going on, so it becomes a science because there's nothing you do other than just change the input. So $1 in means X dollars out. Right? This is already set that way. So you can change the pieces out because they're predictive. You know what's going to happen if I change the piece out, this is going to happen. So people become more commodity pieces at that point. And so then you start saying adult supervision in that case is this guy doesn't produce as much results. And so it's code for I can get a better guy to do this because it's already predictable. Right? But if you're talking about in the early stage and somebody says adult supervision around the table, it's because somebody's not fucking delivering. Right? And it's just a euphemistic way of saying that, but ultimately it means that somebody's screwing it up. Because I'm not going to change a team that's producing and functioning. I would never do that. I would never touch that, right? I never agitate in any way that other than continue to support. So if it comes to a case where I have to bring somebody in, it's because I feel like somebody's not working correctly. And usually everyone else around the table knows that, right? It's not a surprise. It's uncomfortable because they're like, founder B isn't delivering as much as founder A and C, but everyone knows it. And it just sort of continues to become like a bad apple in the barrel over time if you don't change it. So.
Yeah, I see a lot. The founder, he or she, is weak in a few areas, and the supplement is COO. The experienced COO. I've definitely seen that play quite a few times. Yeah. Adam?
If you look at someone's cap table and you see there's a founder on there with a big chunk that is no longer with the business, is that off-putting for you to invest if there's that person with that ownership?
Oh yeah, it's not positive. Let's not sugarcoat that shit.
Yeah. Well, what would you do? Would you go to the founder and say, "I need you to fix this" before, or would you say, "We're done, we're out"?
It depends on how big the distribution. It's pretty echoey in here, so I think people can hear me.
Well, are they
But, okay. Well, so it really depends on how much on the cap table that other person owns, right? If it turns into a situation where the company becomes unfinanceable in the future because of that situation, then it needs to be resolved. And unfortunately, the reality is the company needs to figure out a way to rebalance the cap table between the new stakeholders in the company that are pushing the company forward. I actually think that's a fair thing to do, right? If the company can't get financed because of this liability, then you need to do what you need to do to get the company moving forward. That's your fiduciary duty as a board member, the sole board member usually as a founder. So that's kind of the reality. I understand that it's not palatable for many people, but that's the reality. If you need to take cash and you need to dilute to do that, then that's what you got to do. But if you're talking about from the investor perspective, investors are goddamn lazy. They are really fucking lazy. They do not like rolling their sleeves up. They do not like fixing things. They want everything served to them in a perfect silver platter. They just rather take the next meeting and move on. And so a lot of times you'll just see the VCs pass, right? And one second. And so what you need is you either clean it up before you let them pass and you go and pitch them, or you find a VC who actually gives a shit enough to work with you to make it happen, right?
Yeah, I can. Some VCs would pass on it, but I don't think it's because they're too lazy. I think it's because it's just too much risk. I mean, financially, it's too much risk. So when I see that on a cap table, I'm going to ask one or two things. One is how long that person. Again, it depends. How long did that person actually work? Like if that person spent like 10 years on the thing, like I'm probably not going to bat an eyelash. They have some chunk of the company because they freaking worked on it. But if they just came through some accelerator and they worked on it for 6 months and they're gone, and you were too stupid to give them a reverse vesting schedule, which is usually what that means, is someone was too stupid to do reverse vesting when they incorporated, and that's why reverse vesting is smart. I say, okay, so how do you want to fix it? And you telling me how you want to fix it, I put right in line with your financing and how much money do you want to raise. And so I'm looking at your cap table and your option plan and how you spend an option plan and how big an option plan you need, exactly the same way as how much I think you need to raise and what you're going to get done with it and how long that's going to last, right? And those two things have to match. And so if you come to me and say, okay, I had a CTO who's gone, that was my co-founder, and I was a dumbass and I didn't reverse vest him, so he walked away with the shares, then I say, okay, so how much is it going to cost you to get another CTO? And the shares you need for that new CTO better be bundled into your option plan. And if you need to be re-optioned because you're getting diluted, then that needs to be in the option plan. And that's part of what you present to me is what you need. I need this much cash and this big an option plan. Done. And out of that option plan, I'm expecting I get this, the new CTO gets that, whatever. So I don't think that's me rolling up my sleeves. That's me asking you to do the work. You're the one who tells me what you need to do. I'm not going to fucking tell you what you need to do.
Most VCs won't even sell. Well, they won't even say that. They won't even say go fix this.
Yeah, because you know what? It's like if he's not savvy enough to realize that needs to be fixed, and he doesn't bring it up, they don't want to. Yeah, they're not going to educate.
The reality is that there's more of you than there is of the money to give to you. So it's a classic law of supply and demand. And the attitude, the conventional wisdom on both sides, having been on both sides of this, is that after all the money's gone, there will still be more deals to be done. And so this one's too hard, I pass, I'll wait for the next one, opportunity cost, because I have a finite amount of money that I have to make bets on, right? We're going to do 300 bets over the next 5 years. That's all we're going to do. So when we see something where things are difficult, and we'll dig in, but we'll dig in relative to what we believe, whether or not that, what the upside is to that. But beyond that, if it's hairy and it's going to continue to be hairy, not just now, but going forward, then that hurts you.
Yeah, and that's like, if you're Uber and you go pitch a VC, you're not just competing against Lyft, right? They're not a client. They're deciding how to invest. So if you're Uber, you're also competing with should I go spend money on Salesforce and buy some public shares? I mean, it's all sorts of crazy stuff you're competing with when you want that dollar out of the VC. So you want to be as frictionless as possible.
One last final awesome question. Just to put the pressure on? Yes. What would we like help on? What would we like help on or help with? You want to start down there just because I don't have an answer yet?
What would I like help on? Yeah. Easier fundraising for everyone. Just so you guys know, fundraising for VCs is a massive fucking headache too. It's on the average for a new fund, it takes about 18 months to 2 years. And it's a miserable process. But you can build strong relationships too, but it's a miserable process. So I think what I wish was, I wish probably that the folks that would invest into VCs were better informed, because there's the same scenario. You have dumb money in investors for startups, you have dumb money in investors into VCs as well. And they just sort of chase the public names rather than, really doing their diligence. So I wish that information was less opaque and much more transparent. Because I think that's the root of all the evil with a lot of venture capital, is that it's such an opaque industry, right? And it's a services industry at the end of the day. But if we can make that more transparent, which AngelList is kind of working towards, but still keep the critical magic sauce, which is people, then I think that would be great. So more help with transparency from the whole industry. Yeah.
I'm running a global nonprofit, so I need help with everything. But right now I'm hiring someone to lead business development and fundraising. So kind of in this theme of fundraising. That's who we're looking to bring on the team now. I
think probably what I need help on, I need to clone myself. That would actually really be helpful. So if anyone's got that down.
Intel must have some kind of secret room somewhere.
Yeah, there's
Come
probably
on.
some secret lab somewhere. Yeah, because I think that there are so many competing priorities. So for example, you kind of expect, okay, I've got X number of investments and I have sort of board level weight. I carry, this number of them. And then 3 of them have some massive fire urgent situation all at the same time. And, everyone's pissed at me because no one's getting enough of me, there. And then no one pissed at me over here. I always have at least half a dozen people super pissed at me because I'm not giving them enough attention. But it's not like I'm not working enough hours or that I'm not working smart enough. So it's figuring out, I need help probably prioritizing and figuring out how do I say no better? How do I just get enough done? I need to hire someone for that. Actually, I need like a chief of staff slash bitch slash sidekick. I don't know what to call the person. It's like, I need a mini me.
I need a lot of help. But I need help from UVCs and how to get my old co-founder off my fucking cap table.
I see. I knew about that. I didn't know if you wanted me to bring it up, but
There's a camera over there, right? There's right there. There's
Just
a camera.
trade 'em options. Yeah. They're already replaced. It's done.
yeah, they're out. They're just still on the cap table.
They're still on the cap table.
Yeah.
Me.
His pride. Yeah.
Help me.
Help me.
This is
help
why we
you.
did Cap Tables 101, so you understand the economics, and that's why I sort of specifically brought it up. Like, founders are always like, why am I not fully vested? I'm doing all this work. It's like, this is why. Yeah.
We're growing our services team. I need more really smart people who know how to, help companies develop their markets and get to product market fit. So we're just not, we're understaffed. It's a nice problem to have. But I need more human capital and less investment capital.
Super empathetic to founders, having been there. I've sort of lived the dream and the nightmare, so I sort of know the ups and downs. So I think as you guys have success or failure, what I need you to do is to push that stuff forward, especially the failure and mistakes. Those are super expensive and difficult to go through, but you'll find that you learn so much more from that. And so think about pushing that stuff down because you can save someone drama and turmoil. And once you go through it yourself, you'll be like, I wouldn't want my worst enemy to go through that. So don't just be dependent on VCs. As Marcus said, a lot of us are sort of lazy sometimes or too busy. So a lot of the onus is on you as well to sort of help other founders, think about what's happening, look at Galvanize and these other programs, they're sort of ramping up for thousands and hundreds of thousands of more entrepreneurs to enter this ecosystem. How the hell are we going to support and scale them?
God help
some
us.
of the, I know, it's going to be scary. Well, market could crash tomorrow and then none of that will happen. But if the market doesn't crash, those people are going to need help. So, be thinking, especially if you've had success, be thinking about how you can sort of pay it forward. I know it's cliche, but this is the valley. So it is what it is. Cool. All right, let's wrap up. Let's thank the panel, everyone.